Hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard podcast. This is Absolute Extras episode 4, I believe. And we are joined by Tanner today. How's it going, Tanner?
Oh man, I'm about to talk some jive for round 5 with that being on this podcast. Thanks for having me again, John.
No problem. We're gonna see how high that number can get and how many rhymes you can make, man.
Oh Jesus, we don't want to. Yeah, that's gonna be tough, but we'll keep out. We'll power through. All right.
Today's a unique episode because since the last time we talked, the Street Fighter 6 demo came out, and so we've had the opportunity to actually be playing the demo right now on this show.
Crazy technology.
Yeah. So we've got it. So I'm running it locally here, and Tanner's remoted in via Parsec, and we can have our conversation, but then also demonstrate it while we're talking. For our audio listeners, we're gonna do our best to just kind of describe what we're talking about. So, do you want to talk? We could talk mechanics again now that we have the game to work with here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we last talked about mechanics, drive rush was something that we kind of didn't really talk a lot about. I think I was like, hey, that this is a conversation in itself,
It definitely is, yeah.
So maybe we start there and we'll see where the conversation takes us. Do you want to give like an overview of drive rush from as you know it, Tanner?
Yeah, so for the folks watching on the screen, you're gonna see I'm gonna tap parry and I'm gonna hold it like that. And when I double tap forward, I jump forward in this green kind of explosion. It's like a dash. The dash I think is up to it's cancelable after a certain amount it goes. So I'm gonna hold down and you see me start like there.
Yeah.
And then you see me. I think you can cancel into an attack a lot faster. So most of the time, this is going to be an offensive maneuver, to be clear, most of the time. It costs, as you can see, I'm going to let my pips fill up here for my drive gauge. It's going to take 1 for the parry, half for the parry, and then another half to drive rush. So doing it on my own costs 1 pip, and I can drive rush in. Or if someone's in the air and I'm doing a combo, it would only cost 1. However, the most crucial part is going to be that if you tap forward twice during any cancelable normal, so reuse stand fierce, cancelable now, Street Fighter 5 people cope and seethe because that was only available in V Trigger 1,
Yep.
and so now if I double tap forward, I get the drive rush, and now you see 3 of my pips are gone. So this costs a lot to do, but the strength of it is incredible. So when you drive rush in, this applies to the non-combo version too. The frame advantage you get is way more than you'd normally get. So you can see right there, and I was able to combo because I drive rushed in, whereas before I wasn't able to. Drive rush, as I understand it, adds a universal 4 frames of advantage to any normal that you're doing. So no matter what, let's see. That combos normally, so I want to do something that doesn't normally combo. So
crouch strong, crouch fierce.
Sure.
Or is it stand strong, crouch fierce? One of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. See that combo right
combos.
there.
Yeah.
So crouch fierce, I think, is like 7, and normally this is only about +4 or so on block. So the extra 4 frames I got, let me do a new combo route, and that is going to be its biggest strength. And so you can already see probably, and we kind of talked about this last time, the biggest thing. Look at where I'm standing; it's perfect range, right?
Mm-hmm.
Threatening with my crouching medium kick, my stand light kick reaches about that far, my jab. Now at any time, and right there's a stand fierce. So really, we're going to be playing about this range, and anytime I get a hit, I'm going to have you crouch medium kick because you're almost dead. Oh. Anytime you do it, the drive rush could be coming, right? And there's a combo, right? So obviously, that is how the game was thought about to be played, because when you do that, it scales your combo automatically from a crouching medium kick to 80% already.
Right.
So they definitely understand that this is going to be the gas, right? Right about that range. You're going to see people drive rushing in.
Yep.
And trying to kill me. And it makes sense, right? It seems like a really strong option, especially since crouch medium kicks, for the most part, it's like you can combo into like crouch fierces or crouching medium punches that will at least get you a link into a crouch fierce for a combo of some sort. So most characters in the game have a long reaching poke that they can cancel like that. So absolutely at that range, that's where it's going to happen. Now, then the other thing is like the mind games you can imagine. Tap parry, like I just did. And then you can, you're kind of playing right here. Hold the parry, and then I'm in. Boom.
Yep.
Throw him.
At that
You
point,
know,
I'm just like I'm busy watching for a normal or something,
yeah, we've
and
talked
then
about mental stack before, right? Like the,
right.
or it's like the load bearing, and it's like when you have a lot of things mixed together, that is exactly what you're not going to be looking for. So
Mhm.
you're going to be preemptively throwing out normals, but then if I preemptively do that, you might be able to whiff punish me here.
Oh, right.
Right
Yep.
there. There we go. So that already more than Street Fighter Five, because Street Fighter Five, a lot of this, right?
Hmm.
Dash in throw, right? And the dashes you can see, Ryu's dash is a shell of itself.
Yep. You can't
Not that it's
like.
not good in the context of this game, but it was a 16 frame dash in the other
Mhm.
game. It was super blazing fast. I think Luke's was about the same too. So the mid range game is completely redefined for the most part, and I think
I
that's the biggest thing.
I think that like if you compare 6 and 5's dashes in a 1-to-1 fashion, yeah, like 6's dashes don't serve the same purpose anymore. But I do think Drive Rush actually is the same spirit of the Street Fighter 5 dash.
Correct.
For every time somebody just dashed forward and hit strong and was +2 on block for in Street Fighter 5, like that's a shitty feeling, and that's bullshit when it happens and you're like, okay, this, I gotta block this out now. You don't really get that in 6 because the worst case is he'll dash in and then be +1 at max. Most of the time he's gonna be negative. But the Drive Rush gives you that additional frame advantage, right? So for the Street Fighter 5 players that are like, hey, how do I force a turn and neutral, and when I would used to dash and hit buttons normally, you can use Drive Rush instead.
100%.
And then as the defender, it's not as shitty as 5 because it seems more fair in that you can react to it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see right there. There is a tell of the screen shakes.
Yeah.
And obviously people are going to mess with that in their own ways, but you can already tell there's way more to look at and go,
Mhm.
oh, here it comes. I can react to it.
Yeah.
Than Dash in Street Fighter Five, which was very, very quick. And when you had a hitbox, it was ultra cheating, by the way. Ultra cheating. Put that
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about that too because so just briefly for the hitbox users, right? There's this technique that we know of called SOCD dash, where you hold forward, you tap back and release it in a very quick fashion. Um, you can do that with Drive Rush as well. So you do SOCD dash and then you just tap Drive Rush, and you can get it like that. The other shortcut is you do forward plus forward. So it's forward and then forward plus Drive Rush at the same time. I
just did it right there, yeah.
Right. And so in 5, there's a lot of conversations at high level about how do you mask your dashes. That's actually because again,
you want with a jab real quick, just so you win that timeout.
Oh yeah. Sure. So there's a lot of like masking of dashes. That's actually why a lot of players like Tokido picked up hitboxes, is that then you can dash from like really weird interactions with your character. Like you can dash from crouching, you can dash from like a neutral standing, that you wouldn't ordinarily get with a stick. So a lot of that same mentality around hiding a dash in order to sneak in and steal your turn, a lot of that same stuff applies to Drive Rush in this game. You just find ways to like sneak in that Drive Rush,
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to be looking for, especially as the game goes on, because the thing about two that's like you would dash up and do like crouch. If it was Ryu, you would do stand medium punch, right? Like this is plus 1 or 2 on block or whatever. But as you can see, so you want to block my stand medium punch and then jab right after it.
Oh, sorry, I got to jab right after. Yeah.
See, I can't auto rush, but if I were to do now, block this.
You got it.
Aha! Yep. See, now we're playing Street Fighter 5 again.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, they've nerfed frame advantage on normals normally, but when you put Drive Rush in the mix, you're starting to play a game more similar to Street Fighter 5, where you can like, I'm going to dash in with this normal, and that normal is going to make my advantage plus enough on block to where I can force a strike throw mix up again.
Mm-hmm.
But naturally, if I was to, I think Ryu's, I don't even know. I think it might be 0. I don't know if I can do anything after this, like guaranteed.
No, you can.
Yeah,
no,
exactly,
not Ryu. Yeah. He doesn't have any plus buttons outside.
He doesn't, right? He's got to do that. I think he's got.
Yeah, he's got to do that. Yeah, that's.
Yes.
Yep.
So the days of like the medium, and there's no priority advantage. So you see, I was trying to press medium punch after that, and it wasn't. I'd lose to the jab, every single time.
Yep.
If I just throw this out, you could jab me out of it. It wouldn't just beat it by default, right? Well,
we trade.
Pretty good. Yeah,
we trade.
Yeah, right there.
But that's
there's a good.
Yeah.
So it's unlike Street Fighter 5 in that way too, where I can't just run in and do medium, and my offense is almost automatic. It's almost guaranteed. There is a mind game to be played up close, even when I hit a +1 button or something like that. It's not necessarily that I'm going to get the offense that I want. I have to work for it.
Right. I think that let's say here the frame advantage is interesting because it really is, like, when you're +2 in Street Fighter 5, your options are, I'm gonna walk backwards and shimmy, I'm going to hit a button, or I'm gonna throw. That's usually, or a delay on any of those options to really mess with your opponent's timing. And again, the drive rush into stand strong with Ryu, stand strong is, I believe, 0 on block. It could be -2 actually. I don't remember. But it doesn't matter because the moment he glows green, he's plus, and he's in a range where he can throw you as well. So it turns into Street Fighter 5, like you said. I think the thing that's really worth calling out here is that one of Street Fighter 5's follies is that it was so reliant on frame data and knowledge checks around frame data that you essentially put the onus on the player to do homework before the game started. And so you had to know that Ryu standing strong is +2 on block in Street Fighter 5. And if you didn't know that and you hit a button, you got counter hit. But in this game, so again, the feedback is frame data sucks. I don't want to have to memorize all that stuff. I'd like to be able to just intuitively figure it out in the game. And what Drive Rush allows for is a big green paint blob happens. So yeah, exactly. Can you go do Drive Rush strong for me? Or actually on hit too.
Yeah.
As well. The other character glows green, so you know that when they make contact, they're likely going to be plus. And so the game is telling you what the frame data is without having to actually throw an Excel spreadsheet at you.
100%. It's a visual tell. It's a visual
right.
tell.
And again, I believe that's because, again, no one really cared about frame data for 4 or for Cross, really, more than older games for sure. But compared to 5, where 5 was like live or die by the frame data, that was an alienating thing for a lot of players. And so this is a good way that the game can teach you to play it and teach you the frame data. And if you want to go deeper, you can pull up that frame meter that's in the training mode. Or you can just say, if they glow green, they're plus, and I probably shouldn't hit a button. Or we're playing that mind game now,
Yeah, there's a very good chance that you will be. And I think I'm looking at great app, FAT, by the way, which has Street Fighter 6 frame data from the original beta. Now, that could have changed, to be clear, but it lists Ryu's stand medium punch at -1. Right. So
-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So normally I don't get anything from it. But with Drive Rush, I'm going to be at least plus something, right?
It'll be +3.
It could be +3, right? So which would make my throw be very scary in that instance, because the throws are, I think, 5 frames.
Correct. Yeah. So you'd essentially, if I hit a button, like, we could try that. We could demonstrate that right now. If you want to Drive Rush strong me and then throw immediately afterwards.
Yes, I would do that once this resumes.
Sure. I think what'll happen is, like, you'll counter hit my jab with a throw. Really. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Sorry, I teched. I wasn't paying attention.
Oops.
Yeah. Right. Something like that. It should actually have a counter hit.
Let me do crouch medium punch too.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
So it even says counter hit. So it tells the player, hey, your opponent hit a button, so you just threw that.
Yep. So yeah, you can see. And I think because most jabs now are going to be small or not as fast. So I think now you could probably even frame trap from like +3 or +2. You might be able to I couldn't realistically jab out of this now. Now that most jabs are 4 frames.
Yeah, I think all jabs are 4 frames, which was another enormous contention in Street Fighter 5, where
the difference between 4 and 3 frames. Yeah.
Yep. And then that became like a talking point for tier lists and whatnot as well, or tier placings. In the same vein that, like, in 4, like, certain characters had stronger focus attacks or certain characters had stronger backdashes, right? I think that by and large they've taken this homogeneity or homogenizing like pass at everything and said let's let people express each other through the universal mechanics as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now everyone's 4.
Yeah, basically, because I think the problem was, like, even though it's literally a 1 frame difference, anybody who played 5 and even just a little amount could tell you the difference between a 3 and 4 frame jab meant all the world for your defense, for your punishes sometimes. And so having that versus the have-nots was a huge, huge boon to you. Whereas now it's like, okay, everybody's got a 4 frame jab, but also everybody can be plus a certain amount that probably won't even matter. That 1 frame difference, even if there was one, wouldn't matter. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely changed for the better in this instance.
And there's kind of a weird way to describe this, but the button actually gets like an extra frame in a way because the priority system is gone. In the past, you would be like, all right, so if there's a 3 frame gap here, and I hit jab and they hit strong, I'm going to lose because we'll collide on the same frame and the priority system will happen. But because the priority system doesn't occur anymore, like if I had a 3 frame jab, we would trade and then I would be okay. That would, from a defensive standpoint, that is now a more viable option compared to in the past when the priority system would say you lose outright. A trade is a viable option for a defensive mechanic, in my opinion, or defensive move, in my opinion.
Of course, yeah. I mean, and that would mean, there might be certain moves that, it might be beneficial for you to trade. So like I can imagine if you're Luke and I do crouching medium punch, and then you reversal with the down back fierce, the knuckle where he goes backwards. There might be an instance.
Down back knuckle?
Yeah.
Oh, the heavy knuckle?
Yeah.
Oh,
you're right there. Look at the spacing, right? Like,
oh yeah.
So it's like that kind of reversal now has a lot better chance of actually working because I can't trap you by just doing that. Now you could actually pull back and do something like that. Again, it's just more choices on defense than there were in 5.
I've heard rumors of Luke's using suppressor as a like a kind of a fadeaway thing. In 5, you used to be able to, like, with a Buki, you could do V skill and then she'd reel back and then kind of do this fadeaway thing. And this is pretty similar.
Yeah, I would do crouch medium punch on me and I'll try to like jab or something back. And you do the suppressor. Oh, boom.
It's a punish counter because jabs are whip punishable in this game too.
Which means it's also that is special cancelable, so you could drive rush that, I believe.
Yeah. I'll try it. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you'd have to mash. If I just mashed once, I think.
It also has to do
if I tech to throw. So like you could do that and fake going for a throw. No. Perfect. Boom.
Yep.
That's bad.
Okay. Yeah. So like I guess we're talking about frame data in general while we're here, right? So the impact of everything being 4 and the priority system being gone kind of shifts like the opening window for defensive jabs a little bit to later and arguably more accessible.
Yeah, the Overton window definitely shifted on that. It's not quite as bad as 4 because the thing with 4 that reversal jabs, because you would see people would tear their hair out playing Balrog, and Balrog wasn't like an incredibly strong character by the end of the game's life. He was still pretty good, but one of the things that made him infuriating was if he mashed jab, he could get fierce headbutt into ultra, and this was a completely safe thing. You could hit confirm it very easily. There was almost no way that you couldn't hit confirm that incredibly simple sequence, and it was his jab was 3 frames, so it was like there's this defensive wall that he throws up, and it's like it's really hard to get around that actually, and it's actually kind of frustrating because his jabs lead to so much. Now jabs don't lead to as much anymore. I think most characters, with the exception of maybe Ken and a few others, they can link to a medium, but it's got to be pretty close. So the days of getting like a jab into a medium into a full combo only going to really happen on counter hit. So you got to work for your fun.
Yeah. And even then, like if it's blocked and you try to go jab into strong, everything's negative again. So like if they try to challenge and interrupt, like you have to really earn that frame trap, or earn that string, I guess.
Pretty much. Yeah. Now, of course, this is all once again, complicated by parry, right? So like, let's say I'm playing as Ryu. Now block this. So I'm going to do that Hoshogi, right? Now I'm -2 or so there. So my guess is someone's going to meet back with like a crouching medium kick. But
You can parry afterwards, right?
Well, yeah, and see if you do a fast. So do crouching medium punch after that. Oops.
I'll try a jab.
There's got to be a move.
Oh, that was a punish counter.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, this is -2 on block or minus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is basically, if I fudge with the timing a bit, my guess is I'll get a perfect parry one of these days. And like, so you have to be weary of that, right? Like,
yep.
That was a thing, especially like in Mortal Kombat 11. It was like you would block moves, and there was a certain frame advantage you want to be that was like perfect. That was like it wasn't punishable, but it was perfect enough that if you blocked right after, you'd get like a flawless block kind of trap.
Yeah.
Just by doing that. So like I block my crouch medium kick and do like crouching medium punch right after that. And try jab.
Sorry.
Well, not perfect, but you can see
I get your point.
Yeah.
You can basically in 5 terms in Street Fighter 5 we would call that stealing turns. The magic number for that was -2. If you're -2, you'd be able to you'd be able to reversal. You could tech a throw still. You'd be able to like challenge with a button if they did something besides their absolute fastest button. There's a lot of like interactions that you could create in -2. And in this game, all that's still relevant, but now you have parry too. So you can actually fish for perfect parry and set up traps like you mentioned in Mortal Kombat.
Right. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it too that's great is that because parry is basically a block, you only really get the block frame advantage. So if someone does, crouching medium punch afterwards, and let's say I miss, like, okay, let's say I do this, they do crouching medium punch.
Oh, sorry.
Now you're still +1, but it's +1 at a distance where it's not going to really matter, and it's not like I gave up a ton just to eat that. I think I even might have gained the bar back just for doing that, right? So that was like basically a net non-loss. I didn't lose anything because I parried it, so I got the bar back for parrying. And so I didn't, the parry didn't cost much. Now you could read that and throw me. So let's say I do it again. And that will be worse once I actually hit parry. See right there. So now the parry, when you throw it, it's a punish counter. And when you throw me, I lose, a bar and a half, maybe 1 bar. It's not good. And the throw does a ton of damage. It does like 180, something like that.
It also causes a hard knockdown, so you can't back tech out of it. And so a lot of characters have throw loops in this game, like forward throw loops. So as Luke, or even Ryu, you could do that and just keep... Oh, sorry.
Boom.
Yep. I can't back tech out of this, and I just got to take the throw loop. Yep, exactly. So, like, throws are rewarding if you can guess against that parry. And we talked about that in previous episodes, but ultimately that, like, whether or not throw loops should be in the game, and I think we both felt that you got to have the reward. If you sniff out this parry.
The talking points against it, which I understood, like, no one wants to, like, you're not going to advocate for something that deeply annoys you, right? But like, also they got to exist. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and for like every Street Fighter game has throw loops except for 5. Really, I don't blame the dev team for putting throw loops into 5 because it's like, they were kind of sticking with what worked.
The status quo, really. I mean, now there's obviously a middle ground between like the 4 where you threw them and they were down for 9 hours, and the 5 where it was like, okay, at least that's doable. Like that's fast enough, right?
Right.
But yeah, obviously there is a middle ground, and in older games you could soften the throw, which meant that you kind of like fell into an air reset, which wasn't like guaranteed you could walk up and throw them again, but it was like, more, you still got offense, even though they jumped up, they were up in the air. So there was always a way of like throws led to more offense. And it wasn't like we don't do anything after a throw. It's just a gentleman's agreement to get back up.
Everybody's seen that clip of a Balrog and ST like doing headbutt loops.
Headbutt loop,
throw, dash, like it goes, and then they air flip out, and then he walks forward and does it again and again and again. And then I think it's some of the, like, if he hits the corner, he side switches or something. Like
Dalzim's is also total bullshit.
The noogie, he
does the noogie, he slides in, and you're like, oh great, who's gonna land it again?
Yep. So throw loops are in every Street Fighter. You can make a case for them not being in Street Fighter because it seems like a lot of times they're accidentally balanced. Like there was enough reward off of a throw, and there were enough ways out of a throw because of backdashes and focus and stuff like that.
You want to jab me real quick?
Yeah.
Just so you win. Okay. But you're right. Yeah, there were. There was they have made throws easier to escape over time, but they've kind of kept the reward more or less intact.
Yep.
And I think 5 was maybe the first time where it's like you threw someone, but it you didn't get it. Like it was just whatever, you know. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it. I've played games like MK9 where throws were more or less that they were a like it's like the glove slap that I challenge you to a duel, right? Like you threw them, and then we'll get to it. Like it's like oh, good move, chap. Like, you know, great move. Let's start that over again. And it's like I don't know if that's how they should be. I feel like it's an offensive maneuver. It should probably lead to because if you think about it in a real fight, if you threw someone to the ground, you're gonna punch them while they're on the ground, right? Like that just
Hmm.
makes total sense. So the idea that it would just stop all momentum is kind of now for a certain like a back throw or something like that, like when Ryu throws you back like this, makes total sense, right? Like look at the distance we're at.
Sure.
So for positioning purposes, I think there should be one throw that maybe, and that's how it generally is. A forward throw is going to get you like, it's going to get you, you know, continued offense. So, you know, I'll walk right up, do it right again. But if I
Hmm.
back throw, it's going to be mostly for positioning. You know, if my back is to the corner, I obviously want to throw someone back that way. So I want to throw them back, and I want distance right here. That's a great distance to be. So I understand why there should be one that maybe throws you away, but one of them should definitely let you continue offense. Luke's now they changed his forward throw was different in Street Fighter 5. And now
Hmm.
he has a new one, right? His new one, I think he can just kind of walk up.
Yep.
Yep. So unless I hit the buttons and go back, right?
Right. Exactly.
So they gave him a new throw to make it like, okay, I can just walk up and do it again.
A fun fact about Street Fighter V, not the most recent iteration, but they did leave some throw loops and some Oki setups in 5, like midway through it, specifically for back throws. And it was that, you know, if you want pressure after the throw, then you're going to have to be willing to give up screen positioning and put yourself in the corner potentially.
Okay.
So like the devs, I think, were conscious at that time about risk reward on throws and reward at post throw. But it is worth noting that as 5 went on, they removed a lot of that stuff and made it so you wouldn't get a throw loop after a back throw, but you might get a meaty. And so it seems like 6 has kind of continued that trend where it's like, well, we don't. Well, I take that back. They've completely bucked that trend. They gave everyone throw loops.
Yeah. They threw it back in your face, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
How dare you think you could get out of throw loops?
Yep.
And like you said, I think it because of the parry, I think you had to have something to make throws have a little bit more bite to them.
Yep.
Because they were going to act as a punt is the only because a parry, which we may not have mentioned, actually covers every single hit type. So low, overhead, mid,
Yep.
high. So everything is covered by that. So there is
And
no
cross
like
up.
and cross up. So there's no which would I guess would count as a mid, right? A jumping attack. So or overhead. I don't have to actually guess on like left right mix ups, high low. I don't actually have to guess. Like that is now guessing is for pussies. Actually, I'm gonna parry. And so it's like you don't actually have to put in the work. So there's got to be an option that you can use to get around that, and that's going to be throw. And so in that instance, throw is going to have to give you a little bit more than just some slight damage. We're going to have to make it do more damage, and it's going to take some of your bar, and it's going to make it so that you can't. You basically have to take another throw,
Yep.
possibly. Yeah. So the momentum swing is complete. That if you the high risk of the parry or the relatively low risk of the parry is balanced out by, well, there's a pretty decent option to it, which is throw, which isn't going to kill you most of the time, but it is going to be a significant momentum shift.
Yep. It's a way of not limiting the player and the options they can choose, but at least modifying the stakes. And
the stakes, I like that. Yeah.
When you're dealing with that parry, it's higher stakes, right? And so you can choose to be like, you know what? I don't want to gamble that much life. I think I'm just going to try to block it out, and that's when high low and cross up become relevant again.
Yes, once again, yeah, they're not eliminated, but there are things that you have to take off the table first. Doing the actual work, the intangibles, right? Like the getting people to respect your options, that kind of thing.
Yep, I actually learned that from our first conversation in a couple episodes back. So check that episode out if you're interested. Episode Absolute Guard EX episode 1.
Yeah.
Well, I guess while we're talking about throw loops, like one of the things that's unique about the throw loops in 6 is that as we mentioned on a punish counter, you can't back tech, but ordinarily you can.
Yeah.
So
This is also completely different from 5, in my opinion, in a very good way. So
hmm,
throw me, and so when I get up right there, just that timing. Now throw me again. If I hold the 2 buttons, I'm gonna go back. But notice how long I'm on the ground. Um, the frame count, if you had the little counter up back in the beta, you could see this during the training mode.
mhm.
There, you would see the timing that I'm down for is about the same.
It is
But
exactly the
yeah,
same.
it is
Yeah.
exactly the same, as a matter of fact. But really, what I'm getting is the distance, which is what I really want. But in Street Fighter 5, if you remember, it was you not only got the distance, but you got definitely different timing. And if you were a little too maybe overzealous, didn't think about how they were going to get up, there's a time you're going to run into a jab punish, and a
Yep.
counter hit punish. As a matter of fact, it was very annoying. Like great example. This drove people crazy in early 5. Birdie, you knock Birdie down. He does this little slide back, this little shimmy, and
Yep.
it looks very ambiguous. And then all of a sudden, even though he's got a giant jab that's slow, he's like counter hitting you with his standing low kick or something. You're like, what the hell happened? Like, I can't even tell where he's going. And I think that was just not fun. Like, I think sometimes, like, there's games like Guilty Gear and stuff where you have like variable wake up timing, which works for them. God bless them. I'm not a huge fan, but I respect it. I
4
just
had
think
that too.
4 did have
Yeah.
that too. We had delayed get up, and 8 characters like Adon sometimes would have a little bit different.
Yep.
But
Yun.
I think Yun exactly.
Randomly Yun.
Randomly, I don't know about that, but yeah.
Fair,
So
fair.
he there was things like that, but I think when it's like even just on little things like a throw or something, it's like I have to guess the back tech or not. It's like because there were some characters it was like a lot of times the strength of it would be like, well, you can do this EX move, and that kind of guarantees if you dash up twice, you're at the like you may not be as much advantage, but you're still advantage enough to get something. So like I know with soccer, when I played soccer, it was like your EX Shimpukyak. The great thing about it was that you could dash up twice, and no matter what, you were at positive frame advantage enough to continue, pressure. Whereas
Sure.
if you did Shoken, the medium punch one might get you, but if they back tacked, it was like, nah, you weren't going to get it. So that was kind of annoying. I think, and there's no way to know. There's no real tell. It's just kind of either does or it doesn't happen. It was a total read. Now, yeah, they can back tech, but they're probably not going to punish you because they're down for the same amount of time. And so I don't think it's really going to enact too much of like, oh, we messed up the timing and now I'm open for a punish. It's just going to be like, oh, they backed up. Damn it. It's actually very similar, in my opinion, to the roll from Street Fighter Cross Tekken,
Yeah.
where it was
Get
the
behind that,
original.
yeah.
Now I'm referring to the original roll, the busted one in the vanilla version, where basically Street Fighter Cross Tekken, if you got knocked down, you had an additional option where if you held forward, you would roll, which is an idea they took from Tekken, but like very clumsily, where you rolled and your roll was totally invincible, so there's nothing could hit you. But that was dumb. That shouldn't have existed. And the 2013 version, they added it so that it was like, okay, you could throw them out of it. But either way, they had like it was something you couldn't really get offense from, but it was really good to reset the situation a lot of times. And that's kind of what I think the back throw is. It's like it's not going to get you offense. It's not going to like swing the momentum, but it will get you some distance. It will get you someone to maybe reconsider what they're doing.
Yeah, I full like wholeheartedly agree with you that the original rule implementation with cross in cross was bad.
No bueno.
It had a really bad passive effect in that because you rolled past people, you would essentially never, the corner game was less important, and because of
Very
that,
much so.
anybody that could run away and not get mauled in the corner could create time over situations. Yeah, or even like Relento, like you could run away, and then that game got a really bad reputation for time overs, and that's where I think games like 5 and 6, where they learned from that and were like, we cannot make a good defensive mechanic, because a good offensive mechanic, or like, sorry, an overpowered defensive mechanic.
Yes, overpowered is a good way to put it.
Yeah,
like, it could be good, but it can't be like, I'm going to go to this every time.
Yep.
An
overpowered offense mechanic has the benefit of like people being like, oh, it's Kusage and I like that. It's fun putting my opponent through the blender or something, right? There's a potential it could go that way. A really strong defensive mechanic, it only creates time overs, and it only creates like more returns to neutral, which you know, a lot of times people don't like seeing that in the flow of the match. Every new game that's come out, there's always a complaint about how it's boring, you know?
Yeah. Well, and yeah, as players trying to figure stuff out, you're going to see a lot of times they'll get up close and they'll and they'll do that, and then it's like, okay, that's not like a great combo, and it doesn't really lead to much, but it's like the best thing they can think of in the moment.
Yeah.
Or a big one is like DP. Okay, whew, and then we're gonna go back to this, and it's like, okay, that's kind of dumb, right? Like,
Yeah.
no one wants to see that, like, right, play.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, when you're first figuring things out, you're not gonna know how to like, you're not gonna know like, aha, what if I did and then I could do crouch fear. Like, no one's gonna learn how to do that. Like, that's insane. Or like
Right.
they're gonna do like oh, and like that. I think that actually combos. But it's like you do like a jab, and then that combos, and it's like, okay, now we know that. Like, that's cool and all, but I wasn't gonna know that from the first day. Like, you gotta give me some time. Let me cook.
Yeah, for sure. I think from a spectator standpoint, you know, like I think they knew that was Street Fighter V, and so they said, you know what, let's just not do time overs. And everyone's just gonna maul each other, and they're gonna stick to each other until someone dies.
Yes, that was a much better solution. I agree. And you know, they haven't. I wouldn't say they've done that for Street Fighter 6, but they've come with a way of like, at least it's tied to some sort of meter. Like, there's a lot of characters in Street Fighter Cross Tekken. They cook you doing nothing, not spending any meter.
Yeah,
like Kazuya with some execution, to be clear, but like he could just take half your life just from basic, very, very basic loops of his Electric Wind Godfist. And that wasn't very fun. So I'm glad that they, like, I think we pointed out in an earlier episode, like, measured and thoughtful. There's a lot of that when I think of Street Fighter 6 so far.
Yeah.
Which is good. I think you should, you know, take that stuff seriously. I think you should, if you really want the game to have like a long lasting impact, I don't think you can just throw a potpourri in there and kind of expect the players to will it into being. Like, at a certain point, the hand of the developer, hand of God's got to come in and be like, I'm playing with a few things here, and hopefully this works out. Now, you can't account for everything, of course. There's no way you could in a developmental cycle where you're crunched for a million things. And I guess is balance and stuff is like the least of your concerns. But you can at least be like, okay, we're going to think of, in the initial steps, the mechanics of it. There's some hard rules we're going to apply, like the frame advantage on Drive Rush, that are going to make all the difference in the world. So I think that's a big thing. And I unlike 5, where clearly some minds were changed over the course of many seasons, and about how they do things, I think it's good that they have thought so much about this as first the initial, because, you know, this is the initial run. We're probably gonna, you know, the full game's gonna come out and something's gonna be hilariously stupid, and they were like, oh, well, we missed that, we're gonna patch it out.
Yep. That's kind of what the picture I'm painting here is, that on one end of the spectrum you have Cross Tekken, early Cross Tekken, which was too defensive.
Painful. Yeah,
you could even put 4 in that category as well, as being too defensive in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, it's scary to pressure when someone's gonna uppercut you and it's either safe or 500 damage. Yeah, absolutely.
And then 5, you know, they overcorrected and they said the opposite end of the spectrum, too much Unga, right? And so 6 I think is trying to strike that balance. At the moment, I feel like it's edged slightly towards the defensive side because of the existence of that parry. But it's a nice like way to correct from Street Fighter V without going so defensive that you make it boring, really.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I think there is like a, you know, for every opposite action there's a reaction, and sometimes the initial thing is to go way swing in the opposite direction, but you don't want to do that every time. You, like you said, I think, like you said, with 5, I think they knew what they wanted. But beat up a little bit.
Oh, right.
I think they knew what they wanted. It was just that there was imperfect tools to do it. You know, dashes, obviously, there's no way they were like, okay, we're going to universally make them worse. That wasn't going to fly, right? So it was just like, well, we learned it. We'll figure it out next time. And
I think they tried that in Cross. They made the dashes worse in Cross, and then everyone really hated it. They were like, it's not poor. It feels like clunky. It feels bad to play.
Which was a complaint of Street Fighter 4, to be clear, at the time, was that it was a little slower and clunkier. And then they made Cross Tekken, which was even slower and clunkier.
Yep.
Throws were now 7 frames. They may be some of the worst throws of all time. The range.
Yep.
And it was like, you know, you couldn't throw someone worse squad unless you were punishing their roll. So it was like, there was a lot of overcorrection and stuff like that. And Cross Tekken obviously wasn't going to overtake like the main Street Fighter, but I definitely think the messiness of that first version Didn't really endear it to anybody. And so by the time they did fix it, it was like there wasn't this huge competitive audience. There's still, some dedicated people out there. But I think now, even more than ever, especially when there's so much money to be made from this stuff, getting the first version as right as you can probably get it is going to lead to less bad feelings, I think, down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in general, like, it's at first that seems more unfair because it's like, older games didn't have that burden of having to get it right out of the gates, and a lot of old games were really bad on their first iteration, including
Street Fighter 2 World Warrior.
Street Fighter 3 as
Street
well.
Fighter 3, oh man, I mean,
known
Street
as the
Fighter 2 literally
darling, right, of
yeah, Street
fighting
Fighter
games.
2 literally had like, Guile's handcuff glitch and some stuff that was absolutely absurdly busted, and
Yep.
I there was a Polygon article, I think, where some of the devs talked about how what a shame it was, they thought, to have these bugs so critical just so easily found. But it happens. I mean, this is game development, right? Like, it happens. And there wasn't that pressure then because there wasn't, again, millions of dollars to be made,
Right.
literally millions to be made in competing it and supporting it as a competitive title. So obviously priorities have changed 100%.
Yeah. And the other side of it is that, like, devs have had, like, we've had, like, back then it was like, hey, that was Street Fighter 2 was the first fighting game ever made. Like, or one of the first, like, really popular versus fighting games ever made.
Right.
The first mainstream one, at least. And so it's like, now we have all the experience from how these games work, even from the player standpoint. Like, the player base is more mature and understands risk, reward, and cost a lot more. And I actually want to go there next, in that cost in this game is a concept that, like, it's not a mechanic per se, but I think that one of the big pieces of feedback that I hear from everybody that touches this game in the betas or in the demo is that this game doesn't feel shitty when you lose. And for a long time, I was trying to figure out how to unpack that. And I think the reality is that, like if I were to burn out, right, and let me actually just drive rush to death. I can.
Yeah, say drive rush. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cancel drive rush.
Yeah.
There you go.
So if I were to burn out, right, like, I die for this usually, right? Like, Tanner, you can maul me while we're playing here, while I'm talking here. And what's gonna happen, like, while I'm playing this and I'm getting mauled, I'm like, there's a big flashing gray character on the screen saying, this is what happens when you did this. Like, you DRC'd over and over again. And so by making that drive bar, like, so apparent for the cost, it, like, lessens the blow. It feels less like things are happening to you and more that, like, you created this situation by overextending.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
by virtue of that, it's like, when you have this bar, you can do EX moves, right? Like I just did my reversal, my invincible uppercut. I could do that from the round start.
Right.
I don't have to work for it or anything like that. The offense and stuff like that, big combos, I can do that from literally jump, right? Like, you don't have to work for any of this, but there's got to be a cost to doing too much of it, right? To go
right. And so you mentioned earlier Kazuya being demoralizing to fight against, because if you get hit, he can take 50% of your life for free, right? I think a 50% combo that takes 3/4 of bar feels way more fair to get hit by, because at least you can be like, I'm not down and out, because they burned a lot of energy trying to get this thing off. And in the past, that would be, in older fighting games, that would be the execution barrier. That would be, I got hit by this and, like, this hurts and it sucks, but that guy had to work really hard to get that combo off. But then as things have gotten easier over the years, it starts to feel shittier and shittier.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, like here, block for a sec, just hold down back and then block this jump in. Like, to
block
get
the jump
that,
in. Yeah,
block the jump in. So, like, to get that, and then, like, the strike throw mix up that comes from landing like a jump in like that. It was like, in older games, you had to land that jump in pretty deep. You couldn't hit it at the top of their head because you wouldn't get enough frame rate. There was like, okay, really got it, and I got to jump, and so I could be uppercutted or something like that. So there was obviously, more risk reward. Now, obviously, now the uppercuts don't do as much damage. The momentum swing isn't as terrible. So obviously, we're creating situations that are going to happen over and over and over again. So we've got to work to get the reward down somewhere. And some people have argued that jump ins are a little too easy to combo from now.
I heard that in 4. Yeah.
4, that was a big complaint, right?
Yeah.
People would jump in and just kill you. But I mean, it is what it is. I think, and now, I mean, obviously, the big thing about jumping to this is try and parry this.
Oh yeah, I see.
Like I'm gonna cross up, right? Like I'm here, I'm gonna cross up, and there's a good chance that that'll happen.
I can't get it.
Yeah, we're on parsec, folks. So, but
yeah,
you see my point though. Like,
yep. And I just gotta hit it later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, perfect parry makes it so jump ins aren't free all the time either.
Because
right?
This is what a lot of people, I'm going to do the perfect example of a guy on Xbox Live, right? Like they're going to do that, but it's like, okay, they do that, and then
this is jab, and then immediately.
See right there, you just saw it. Like you could, and now you can throw somebody for doing that.
Oh,
right. Yeah. That's an example, right? Like you could jump in, and if it lands. See, I had to throw tech, or else I would have been thrown. I couldn't have done anything else.
Yeah, that's also because you're doing it extra deep. If you do an early jump light kick, oh, good. Yeah, you're hella in the air, and I get a punish counter for it.
Yeah, and I just lost 1 bar.
Yeah,
because that's how people work. They do it up here. They do obvious cross-ups, but there's not like a huge way to stop it.
Yeah, you want to beat an anti-air. That's probably why I was having a hard time perfect parrying it, because you're doing it hella deep.
Yeah, which is that's not how most people actually do it, to be clear. Yeah, most people.
That's the extra mind game layer. Is now you can be like, hey, they're parrying my jump in. I'm gonna start empty jumping, or I'm gonna change the button that I hit so it hits at a different timing.
Oh, or someone's gonna start doing jump jab like this.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like watch, you jump jab and you're gonna parry, and it's like we're gonna throw you like that.
Yeah, it's gonna whip.
Yeah, and you're gonna be like, God, I'm such an idiot.
Because again, they put a 20 frame recovery on parries or something, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I just gotta take that. That was a punish counter.
So watch parry, but hold block afterwards.
Okay.
It's like tap parry and block.
Yep.
Like you can still block, right? Like you're not gonna get hurt from like if you guessed wrong, but I don't think you can throw tech during that recovery. To be clear.
Oh, try again. You gotta go fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So right there, yeah. So it's like. And also, John just pointed this out to me the other day. He thought about this. Parry. Or no, just tap it. Just tap it.
Oh.
Now during this, you can't parry again. So it's like that high-low thing comes back into play where it's like, okay, now I wasn't blocking, but now, I kind of have to do it again because I just parried. Now I can't parry again.
Yep.
To get rid of high-low mix-up. So it's like there may be an opportunity where like you parry something and then you immediately go for an overhead or low.
Yep.
Because it's like you actually do have to guess, and you're probably thinking about throw a lot. So
the straightforward way to describe that phenomenon is that when you whiff a parry, you can block. You can cancel that animation into block. But if you block incorrectly, or if you don't block whatever they hit you with, it's a punish counter state during that recovery. So if someone hits you with a high-low and and you just tap parry and you're in the recovery phase and you're blocking low and they hit you high, that's a punish counter. That's pretty big. Oh man, this game is so fucking cool.
Now aren't like derpy on hit. Like you're gonna get like a crouching medium punch after it, and it's gonna hurt.
Yep. There's also another layers to it as well, because like that recovery window only happens when you release the button, right? When you release the parry. True. So then you get into a timing mix-up with your opponent, and you're playing chicken. Like, how long am I going to hold this parry?
Yeah, it spends the pip of the bar as long as you hold it. Your drive gauge will slowly drain. So it's like technically you can hold it until your drive gauge runs out. Are you going to do that? Probably not.
Yeah, because then your opponent will see the parry and then they're going to walk up and throw you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Now I think I don't think you can be thrown. Like when you parry something, I think there's a window where you can't just throw them out of that. Like I think they're going to be okay.
Correct.
Like
yeah.
When you parry something and you're in like the animation, I don't think you can throw them after that. That would be way unfair.
Yeah, it's in the same vein of like if you put somebody in block stun and you can't, and you try to throw them immediately after, and they're still in block stun, they can't get thrown. There's a parry stun, so to speak. So when you parry something, you take that parry stun, and they can't throw you during that time either.
All right, so I'll parry something.
Okay. Yeah, so right here we're playing a mind game right now when you parry, because I'm like, how long is he gonna hold it before I walk up and throw him? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Because at any point you could release it, and then you could throw tech after the parry, right? Mm-hmm. Ooh, that was tight.
Or I do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're perfect parry me, right?
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah.
But then we start doing like, oh, sorry. So I'm gonna do jab, 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 and then throw.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
a
we can
perfect
do that.
example right there, right? Because
Right.
and a lot of people, if you played like PSN, Street Fighter 5, a lot of people's classic to do is something like this. Da, 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 crouch medium kick, right? So
Yep.
Navi with parry, I can do da, 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 and then he's gonna parry right after that, right? And there's a good chance it could be a perfect parry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I got nothing from that, and he's gonna come in with his offense because now I'm super negative, and there's not as much pushback. That's a big thing too. There's not much pushback when I do it that, whereas if I do it like there,
yeah.
See, right? Like he's much closer. So he's within stand fierce range or standing medium punch range. So it's like when I'm negative on that, well, I can't press anything. Watch it. Parry my crouch medium kick and then do like stand medium punch. It beat me, right? Like there's nothing I can do. So that's a big deal too. Cause we were talking about the last time, positioning really is back. I don't know where it went, but it came back. And so it's like now that there's no priority system to kind of or crush counter normal where you're just throwing out your stand fierce punch and this beats like all normals coming at it. Where I'm at is going to determine a lot of what I can do. So if I crouch medium kick, expect to get certain pushback so I could walk back and do that. But if you parry it, then I try to walk back and do that.
Oh yeah, you're punishable. You're in range basically.
Yeah. See, I tried to walk back and I couldn't. So that's gonna, and those little minutia. I mean, that's the intangibles, right? Like that's part of being good at fighting games. That stuff matters, and so parry messes with that a little bit. Where now the pushback isn't as bad.
Yep. If your opponent's trying to set up tick throws, right, then they're gonna need to know like the exact spacing to walk up and do it safely.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like hold parry. Okay, so I get tick throw. Okay, I didn't know that the pushback was like worse because my guess is there's some things you can like make a tick throw with because the pushback isn't as bad. That normally it's like if you blocked it, I would be just whatever. Like my guess is if you block standing jab, like crouch block. Okay.
Well, sorry. Yeah, I gotta stand block it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But if
my hitbox gets fat. Yeah.
Yeah. Oops.
Oh, I guess I could still walk out of it if I'm holding backwards.
That's right, because jabs are not plus.
Yeah.
Or if they are, they're very, very minimal.
And if you were to drive rush in, like the drive rush momentum would also get you in there to do it too, like drive rush jab. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Yeah.
So there's answers. It's just every single thing comes with a cost, and I think that another like interesting thing, right, is that we get into that tap parry meta that we were talking about earlier, where it's like, okay, if you tap it, you can get the perfect parry, you get your punish counterable if they hit you with an overhead, blah blah blah, right? But the big thing is when people tap parry, they often throw it right afterwards to tech.
Yeah.
So like if so I'm gonna do jab, you parry, and then immediately tech. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So a lot of people will like, oops. Yep. So I'm gonna do jab. You're gonna parry the second jab, and then we're gonna throw tech.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Either way, the point I'm trying to illustrate is that we get into a strike throw after parry as well, and so then a shimmy becomes viable. And parry, like if someone's parrying you, like and you're doing like a jab string or something, you can walk backwards if you think they're gonna throw tech because they don't want to get punish counter thrown.
Yeah, of course.
And then
that's the number one thing you'd be thinking about is someone's gonna throw me.
Yeah. We were starting to do that towards the end of closed beta 2 in particular, is that at the beginning of it, we were figuring out how parry worked and starting to use it more often. And then by the end of it, everyone realized they could parry and then delay tech. And so people started doing parry into shimmy as a counter. And there's just so much. And again, like we look at this and we're like, okay, so there's clearly so much thought put into this parry mechanic, and that the fact that you can cancel into a block, you can cancel the recovery into block, but only block, right?
Yeah, to be clear, no normals would work during that window.
Right.
So it's not like I could parry and then, nope. So you can see the animation took me until the end.
Yep. So good stuff. This is our first time actually getting to talk about the game and play it at the same time. So this is super cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any like closing thoughts about the demo and about like your experience with the game so far?
Well, I would say the demo's pretty limited, as is, kind of expected, right? You're supposed to play the fighting the fight world tour mode and try and make your own character and things like that. So I think that's all good. I actually think the world tour stuff is kind of cute so far. I think it's interesting their take on the model that has been in a lot of fighting games. Like Virtua Fighter kind of has it, but not so, like, obviously not cinematic or anything like that. But the
Sure.
idea of like you going around the world and like beating up like a local vendor, that's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
And that you could challenge anyone on the street to a fight. The only thing I don't like is that it goes into like 480p in the fights. And my
It's
guess
bad,
is,
dude.
yeah, my
Yeah.
guess is there's no way around that. Like, they wanted it to be seamless with no loading screens, and my guess is their compromise was, well, it's gonna look like shit, but you don't actually load between the fights. So,
Yeah,
and it's still 60. Yeah.
in on the PlayStation demo, the PlayStation 4, I played it on PlayStation 4 at first, and yeah, the World Tour mode, when the fights happened, it dropped down to 30 frames per second.
Oh,
And everyone, I looked it up on the internet, and I'm like, hey, this is terrible. Like someone that's got a hack for this, right? And everyone was talking about performance mode. And so in some versions of the demo, you can actually set, I might even have it in here. I can actually show it on the screen. There is a limit World Tour battles to 30 FPS option.
Oh, wow.
But the kicker is that this is only on some systems. It makes sense on PS4 last gen system. It's gonna lock it at 30 frames because it probably can't handle 60. But this is how you fix that issue. And even then, I tried doing this. I tried streaming earlier this afternoon, and I couldn't break. I stayed usually around 40 to 50 in World Tour mode.
Okay.
So
I mean, at least they thought about it, like,
yeah, it seems like they're
option.
having a hard time getting it working. That's my like take on it, at least. Is it like, if they have to drop it down to 30 frames per second, then I don't know, the average person, I think people are going to notice that, all things considered.
Yeah, they may notice it, but it's like, if it still feels okay, then I don't think there's going to be like a huge uproar. If it felt like shit, going from a different, like, to going to a different like variable frame rate or whatever, then yes, you would hear people complain about it. But I think if it stays pretty consistent, I don't think anyone's gonna.
I think it feels like shit. I'll be real.
Yeah.
Like, because the cutscenes and stuff, they all jump back to 60.
Yes,
it's
they do,
just the moment the fighting starts, and I'm like,
it's very jarring. I thought so too when I first saw it. I was like, something happened to the monitor or something, and then I looked. I was like, oh, it's fine. It's just, I do like that they have, like, I think they have like I think in the options they call it like the input delay thing on consoles.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you have 120, I have a 120 hertz monitor, I can actually turn that on, and it will. I think it's in like the graphics settings or whatever that I can change on the console. Input delay reduction. Reduction. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So I can turn that on, and my monitor can, because I have a 120 hertz monitor, I can play at that 120 hertz, which is guaranteed to be better. Proven fact.
Yep. I tinkered with that setting on the PlayStation version, and when I turned it on, I got a little screen that popped up that said, you may experience more tearing, screen tearing. And so that to me is code for, we're turning VSync off.
Yes, because that's,
on consoles, which is
that's
huge.
that's what VSync is, right? Like, it's reducing tearing, and you turn that off because it feels better. Obviously, there may be tearing, but I don't think it's really that bad, especially if you have the right monitor. So I don't think it's really the pros and cons, I think, balance out in the end. But yeah, on a console, you can basically do that.
Yeah, I've never seen the ability to turn VSync off on a console before. Obviously, these newer ones clearly have the option. So.
I don't think that was in the betas, to be clear, either. Like, I think they hadn't worked it out yet. I know they had, like, people were a little upset because they said there was going to be like 120 frames option, but only maybe for like offline replay mode or something like that.
Yeah, but it's actually in here. It's kind of a weird misnomer. Let's see, where do I pull it up here? Graphics. There's a right here, maximum frame rate. It's grayed out right now because we're stuck in we're in versus mode right now. Yeah. But like that does go up to 120. But if you hover over it, it says it's only for World Tour mode.
Oh, okay.
Which, again, if I'm having a hard time getting World Tour mode running at 40 to 50,
120 is not happening.
No way, dude. Maybe if I'm running at like 480p or something.
God of War Ragnarok, this is not okay.
Yeah. That's actually, like, just to kind of air some grievances here is that I don't think I'm not a huge fan of PC gaming, and I know that's not a very popular opinion, but like,
hey, look, you're talking to the guy who's stubbornly stuck with consoles long after they probably shouldn't. So yeah,
yeah,
I know the feeling. Yeah.
I liken it to like Android phones. I don't know if you ever got into Android phones, but like
I've
when
only
they
ever had
first,
Android phones. Fuck Apple phones. I've had it. I didn't like it. Yeah.
did you ever go through a phase where like you were flashing custom ROMs and doing custom bootloaders and stuff on it or anything like
Uh,
that? Or like remember rooting the Android phone or anything like that? There's like that subset of tinkerers.
Gesundheit, I would say to all that. That
Okay,
is all
fair
German
enough.
to me. No, I didn't do anything like that, but I did still like, the Android phone. I not only did I like the layout more, I like the freedom because like I'll get like I think the most I ever did was like I'd get custom wallpapers that someone would have to give you like a link to.
Sure.
You'd be able to download, open a folder or something like that. I like that way better than Apple's bullshit.
Okay. Well, so this is kind of analogous to that where like PC gaming gives you a lot more options and a lot more tinkering that you can do with it.
Of course, yeah.
And you can squeeze out more juice, but like I am so tired of tinkering with things. I just want it to work. I just want it to work out of the gates. Yeah. And so when I launched World Tour and it didn't work out of the gates, and then like I was like, okay, I need to Google it and figure it out, and then I realized that it just didn't work at all on the PlayStation. I'm like, fuck this. And then now with PC, I'm like, man, if I can't hit, now I have to like tinker with these settings. Like maybe I'll turn off ambient occlusion and then launch the game and see if my frame rate improves. I'm like, I don't want to do this stuff. It's all so much like troubleshooting stuff. That's my downside to PC gaming, is I don't really care for that.
Me too. And so that's why I've always stuck with consoles where, hey, it may be a little bit worse, but you know what? The things I care about, I'll probably be okay.
Yeah. But there are other sides of it where like the things that I care about, such as like input delay reduction,
of course,
or the ability to stream it easier. Like there's a lot of benefits to PC as well. I don't want to be completely shitting on PC, but I am worried about the console versions for this game. I'm genuinely worried about like the performance for people on the World Tour mode and how people are going to take to that. If casuals are even going to notice it. I think it's I
do too. I think they'll notice it. Yeah, I think it depends on, like you said, if they can get it to where it's not a variable feeling of frame rate, that it doesn't feel totally bad.
Yeah,
it'll be fine. If it goes to like 480p and they're like, it's like watching YouTube in 2007, I'll deal with it. It's not the best option, but maybe because, like I said, my guess is they just didn't want load times, and unfortunately, they don't have the budget of MK. Because what's funny is I saw people be like, "Did you see there's a separate download for World Tour mode, like in HD?" And I'm like, "Dude, Mortal Kombat or World Tour is like a separate download." I'm like, "Dude, Mortal Kombat 11 has." Yeah, I think somebody said that like World Tour might be a separate download on the disc, and I'm like, Mortal Kombat 11 story mode is not only a separate download; they have a 4K version that you can download. Okay,
that's cool too. I didn't know that.
I'm very used to that. So like in MK11, the story mode is considered so big, it's its own fucking download, right? So it's like, and then the story mode in MK11 is very cinematic with no load times, tons of work spent on it, millions and millions of dollars. So obviously they're not going to be like, we're going to 60 for this. That's not happening. But Street Fighter 6, I could see, we did what we could, but their options are options, and we had the time we had.
The cool thing and my ending point on this one at least is that I can shit all I want on this World Tour mode, but I know it's not for me. And if I open up this fighting ground on the demo here and I look through all the options here, this is Street Fighter 5. This is Street Fighter 4 even. It's got all the features. It's got versus mode, it's got arcade mode, it's got guides, it's got trials, it's got team battle, gimmick modes, it's got the online like ranked casual and battle lounge stuff. Like this is a fighting game right here. This fighting ground menu is a full fighting game to me. Again, like I'm not somebody that values the single player mode. So again, the World Tour mode can have all those issues. If the people that like that stuff like still like it despite the issues, then more power to them. Great. This fighting ground is my game. I would buy this game.
I did think it was kind of odd how they split it. Like even in the original advertising, they split up like World Tour, Fighting Ground, and it was like it is kind of confusing because they're like Fighting Ground. I guess that's where we do versus. But I think in practice in the menu, it works out fairly well. It's like they kind of blocked this off from, which is how Mortal Kombat does it too. To be clear, like there is a story mode option, then there is a Towers of Time option, and then there is the versus option. So it's like these are all separate game modes to be, for different players with different, priorities.
There's a lot of benefit in putting it into the three buckets like that. There's a principle in software engineering called Conway's law, actually. Um, Actually, let me take a step back. The reason why I think it's three is because I think they had three separate teams working on this thing. There's benefits to like creating domains within your project and saying like you stay in your lane and then we'll stay in ours. So I think they put I think they put the RE team and the Monster Hunter team on World Tour and Battle Hub, and they put the Street Fighter 5 team on Fighting Ground, and then they just shared tech, right? And it works from a marketing standpoint. As we mentioned, it's very clear to be like, here, there's three different things and you can separate them and stuff like that. The principle of Conway's law is that your org chart dictates your architecture. If you ever want like a fun buzzword to drop in a software engineering interview, because like you can always make the best decisions from an architecture standpoint when you're writing code and making it efficient and stuff like that. But if another team has to come in and support that stuff, then you might want to build it a little bit different, so that way that other team doesn't like can hit the ground running, or they can develop in parallel with you. And what happened is, I bet the Street Fighter 5 team was working on this in parallel with the Monster Hunter team, which was working on Rise and then porting this over. I bet there's some RE folks that worked on this stuff too. Like, I think it's as simple as that. Like they broke it into three because there were three different teams working on this, and there were three separate projects in parallel.
Yeah, which makes sense because like Street Fighter 5, they obviously had that Zenny stuff that just didn't end up panning out. Like it never got made, so clearly I don't think they were working on it. Like I think it was outsourced, and
yeah, that's the thing is, I think 5 was like, I have a contractor relationship team in Capcom, and then the contractor team in Dimps, and then they just dumped everything on Dimps, and they were like, okay, well, we'll just do our best.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's kind of it. Like, I don't think Capcom had a lot of control of the product, which is not a defense thing. It's more like, that's what you get when you outsource it. And again, Dimps had a decent track record. Well, Dimps had an okay track record.
I think their track record is pretty good for fighters in general. You know, I like Dungeon Fighter, whatever it's called. Like it's goofy, but like it's solid. You know, they do good work on occasion. It's just that, you know, my guess is with any project, you don't have any time, you don't have any money. Yeah. You're gonna get what you're gonna get, and it may not be pretty, but they push out a product. Yeah.
I think they somehow, like, I think Cross was like the start of the downhill, but they were pretty well known for 4, and then Fighting EX Layer too. Fighting EX
Layer, yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, you could tell, like, with 5, like, if you ever see, like, the original concept art and maybe some of the original mock-ups, like, they had Ryu in his Street Fighter 6 outfit as, like, an idea, you know, and my guess is they had to scale back down a lot and just were like, okay, default costumes, you know, classic, because we don't have time to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, so, my understanding, and for people that are interested in this storyline,
they had a working demo ready by Capcom Cup 2015. I remember, where they ended the show, and then like Gutex and Mike Ross played a demo, a very early version of Street Fighter 5.
Yep. Internally, even before that demo, there was that, like you said, the hot Ryu outfit that he looks a lot like he does in 6, and the corpse looking Bison.
Yes.
For the people that are interested in this storyline, check out Matt McMuscles' video on Street Fighter 5. I think it's actually one of the better like history lessons about it.
His stuff is great. What happened?
What happened? Yeah. But the shorter to spoil some of that video is that like, I wouldn't be surprised if that initial prototype, they shelved it and then they just said Dimps start over, and then they took that thing off the shelf and they turned that into 6.
Yeah,
like there's so much stuff that's carried over from that screenshot that you'll see in Matt McMuscles' video if you go watch it, that it's in 6. Like, you could tell there was a stamina bar in the mock-up that they had, and then Ryu looked like Ryu, and it's like, you know,
all the pieces start to come together, you know.
Yeah, so I think that like they had contractor support for most of 5, and then now the team has finally gotten a chance to like spread its wings, I guess, and this is what we get.
Hope we survive the experience.
Yeah, very cool. Any shout outs on the way out, Tanner?
Shout outs to the Phoenix Suns. Just got past the first round of the playoffs. Ooh. Now in the Western Conference semifinals, waiting on the Denver Nuggets. The game starts on Saturday. Pretty excited about it, but let's hope our hot streak continues.
Very cool. Very cool. And then Al McCoy's retiring this year too, right?
Al McCoy will be retiring. He is begging for them to lose this because he just turned 90 today. And my guess is he's like, please God, let me have my last Shazam and let me be, because he's done. But until the postseason is over, he's not really done.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All righty. Well, GG's, and we'll catch y'all later.
All right. Bye, everybody.